This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey, Single Cask Nation News Edition. And I'm here with the ever wonderful Jason Neil Patrick Harris Johnston yelling, and I'm watching him nose a fine glass of whiskey right now.
It is for a little bit later in today's episode, so I will put that down. I will not get carried away. We will do things in order as God intended.
There you go. Exactly as God intended. So here we are. God intended that we start anew with season 9. We sort of change it up a little bit. And normally our episodes would have us with an introduction and a little outro after we interview with someone, and we can sort of decompress and highlight some of our favorite bits, about the conversation we just had with our guest. And so we don't have that chance, but we have this chance to sort of reflect back. And Jason, I don't know if you did this, but once the episode went live, I listened back because, you try to be present within the conversation at all times.
Agreed.
However, we were walking through a very active construction zone, and there was eye candy everywhere, right? There was this big column still covered in its, opaque saran wrap, and, they were still building things out. So there was a lot to look at, but, listening back to the conversation, I have sort of a big thought on it. And just for those that are listening now, what we're talking about is our conversation from our previous episode with Jane Bowie at Potter Jane. And the feel that I got from this entire conversation was, Jane and Denny had a dream or a set of dreams that they were enacting, and we were watching them enact those dreams in real time. And what a great thing to witness. Like, you could see the pride in Jane's face. You could hear it in her voice as she's telling us what they're going to be doing, the types of whiskeys she's looking to make, and so on.
Well, and walking through it felt like we were walking through a newly built house, right? Here's the focus we put in here. Here's the attention to detail we put in there. Except it's a very large distillery that people are going to visit and be able to walk through for themselves. It was, remarkable to be on site.
Yeah.
I like that comment you made a moment ago about being present. And when you're conducting the interview on the move and you're thinking about the next questions, and you're thinking about the listeners, and are things being presented in a way that's accessible to the listeners, it is wonderful to sit down, listen back to it and say, okay, that was good. The way we felt in the moment was conveyed. The excitement from Jane was captured. Okay, good. We can rest easy. You can refer listeners back to it. Check it out if you haven't listened to it already. Season 9, episode 1.
There you go. Yeah, I had to edit it a bit out. There was a whole wonderful conversation while we're in one of the bathrooms. And so unfortunately our listeners could not hear all the bathroom talk that we had, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, maybe it'll show up somewhere where the nation of listeners can hear it for themselves.
So beyond that, Jason, do you think it's high time to go into a little bit of news? We've got a number of bottlings coming out.
I do. I still haven't tasted this whiskey that I keep nosing, and I've once again put it down.
I know. I watch you keep picking it up. You go to nose it. You're like, when the fuck do I get to taste this? But no.
That time is coming.
It's coming. You've got to wait. So listen, listeners, and Jason, as many of you will know, Single Cask Nation has multiple routes to market. Here in the U.S., we have bottlings that we release for retail shops. We're going to talk about that today. Also in the U.S., we have bottles that are released only on our website, right? There's casks that we bottle for retail, casks that we bottle for online. Those are always kept separate. So that's 2 routes to market for our whiskeys. And then, of course, our third one is with our very own Jess Lomas, where she handles the rest of the world, all of the countries outside of the U.S. But for the purposes of today, we're going to focus on our retail range, which is starting to hit some store shelves, and we'll roll out a bit more broadly in March 2025. And then we've got 3 online bottlings that we want to discuss. And I know one of them, Jason, you're nosing right now, but let's get to the retail bottlings.
Yes, sir.
And this is in no particular order, by the way. It's just in the order that happens to be in front of me on my little piece of paper.
How many total?
So, right. So we've got 8 bottles in total, and it runs the gamut, right? We've got some Speyside, we've got some Highland, we've got some Isla, we got Sherry Cask, Bourbon Cask, Rum Cask. Like, there's a lot of fun things happening here. I'm going to lead off with, spoiler alert, what I think may be my favorite of the batch, at least for now. And that's our 16-year-old McDuff, 57.5% ABV. And that was 12 years in bourbon. And then 4 years in American Oak Oloroso. And my particular note on this was a massively rich and warming cask of McDuff that not only highlights what we feel the distillery does best, but is also perhaps one meant for comfort. And Jason, you and I have talked about this, ad nauseum. Like, sometimes you want that whiskey that challenges you. Sometimes you want that whiskey that just allows you to shut your brain off and enjoy delicious. And for me, that's what this one is.
Yeah, I think the talk of comfort makes good sense with the McDuff, and certainly an Oloroso sherried McDuff with some decent age on it, 16, as you say.
Yeah, and that should be on shelves for around $150 each, which is not so bad for a 16-year-old whiskey, right? That beats our $10 per year rubric. Is that the right word? Is rubric the right word?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so. Rubik's Cube, is that the right word?
Matrix, perhaps?
Matrix.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
All right. I'm going to jump into a little bit of peated, but this is naughty peated, Jason. Which one do you think this is when I say naughty peated?
Naughty peated? Yeah, I don't know.
It's a Rude Vor.
Oh, yeah. You had me at naughty. My mind went to the Etrusk,
Right.
and so I couldn't get past the naughty peated portion. Yeah, that Rude Vor. Yeah, tasty. Speyside peat.
No, Highland peat. Highland peat. Yep. It's from a Highland distillery. We're not allowed to use the distillery name on the label, but
Near Perth.
Near Perth. Oh, I like that. But yeah, exactly. If you have the internet, you can find out where that is. But that one was 14-year-old and all 14 years in refill bourbon Hoggy. And this one's like
good.
That one for me is like going through a bicycle tire shop, and there happens to be a fire, but the only way to get to the patisserie is through that tire fire shop, and then you get all the bounty of the buttery warm biscuits. Like, it's got all sorts of fun things going on with that one.
Yeah, and we always talk about refill bourbon, the opportunity for the spirit to shine through, especially peated Highland spirit to shine through. Price on that one?
Price on this one is $150, and those that may have been following news as of late, the distillery that makes this actually announced that they're not going to be making this Rude Vor spirit anymore. They're just going to stick to their unpeated stock. So, this is finite stuff. So
yeah, I don't want to live in a world without Rude Vor.
Right?
I like Rude Vor a lot.
Yeah, same.
But not our decision.
Nope. The next one, Jason, is from a distillery that you and I have been wanting to bottle for years from. Our good friend Gordon Bruce, distillery manager there. This is our 9-year-old Knock Do, 6 years in bourbon and 3 years in a Spanish Oak Oloroso Hoggy, first fill.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the first time we're bringing it to America. I think Jess has had a Knock Do in her global markets.
Oh, you're 100% right. You're 100% right.
Yeah, so nice to bring that to the US in time, right? It's the right cask coming to the US at the right time. And 9 years old. That's pretty tidy.
Yeah, pouring that for people, they just say it's just big, juicy, fruity. One guy said to me, it's got that SCN texture. And I loved hearing that, right? That's what we're about, that big, rich, unctuous liquid. So 58.4% alcohol.
Look at this for delivery during a recording. This got left in the car after I took it to a tasting I was doing. And so that's That's the 18-year-old just bringing it back in. It was rolling around in the car seat, in the back seat, not the car seat.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you for that delivery.
That's our Glen Scotia from release number 12. There you go. So this one is 58.4% alcohol. It's $120 retail on that one. We're not color guys. Are we color guys? We're not color guys.
No, not color guys.
But man, oh man, Nichevitz, is that just not a deliciously, richly dark colored whiskey?
Yeah, cracker. Good distillery.
Yeah. Inchmore and 14-year-old is our next one. So
Loch Lomond Distillery.
Right, Loch Lomond Distillery. They produce 14 styles of spirit. Inchmore is their unpeated, distilled through their copper pot stills with a really high cut, with the idea of focusing on the fruitier aspects, the lighter, fruitier characteristics of the spirit. But this whiskey had its final 3 years in a toasted French oak barrique, right?
Yeah, this is doing something very different, well worth seeking out. The toast really comes through on that one.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Yeah, and it brings forward this like butterscotch creme brulee. The French oak brings a bit of spiciness to it, but I think it's sort of, Inchmore and spirit is normally quite fruity. This sort of bolsters the malty backbone to it, which I think is really nice.
The toasted French oak is special when you can get your hands on it.
Right. Yeah, you don't find a lot of it. So yeah, that's.
Did you give the price on that one?
No, I'm getting to that. So 54.3% alcohol, 145 for that one.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So we're going to jump back into peated. And the next one is our Bunnahabhain Stoisha.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
When I was over in Glasgow in November, pouring with Jess and Sweet Scott at Glasgow's Whiskey Festival, the Bunnahabhain Stoisha got crushed. The global bottling of that got crushed. And so nice to have a version over here.
That one was a sherried one, right? The global
Correct.
one? Perfect.
Correct.
Right? So there were a number of people who reached out to us noticing that non-US release, saying, where can I get that? What shop does Binny's have it? Right? Does Specs have it? Insert shop here. And we had to disappoint them, but now we get to say, well, no, we have one for the US, and this one's 6 years in bourbon and 4 years in American oak PX sherry.
Oh, start lining up for it now.
Right.
Yeah, that's cracking.
Yeah, it's
cracking.
It's full on, the Stoisha peat is massive, but the sherry, that American oak sherry, just rounds it out really nicely. And 10 years old, 58.9% alcohol, and only $110, right? For a heavily sherried, peated Isla.
Awesome.
Like, come on.
Awesome.
All right. We have 3 left here of our 8. And this is one where, another one where we couldn't use the actual distillery name on the label. So we're calling it Pluscarden Abbey. Those who are, versed in Google Maps can just do the Google Maps and you'll find out pretty quickly what distillery Pluscarden Abbey is close to.
Well, not even that. It's which distillery was built on the site of Pluscarden Abbey. Like that will be the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My understanding was that it was near it. It's on the site.
No.
Of it.
Yeah. It was built on the site of Pluscarden Abbey, which is a great little bit of history. Which, if you have to come up with a fanciful name, not a thing we like to have to do. We'd rather sing the praises of the distillery front and center. Mm-hmm. But if you have to come up with a fanciful name, an archaeological connection, I think it's a bit of fun. And it's a little nod to our love of Indiana Jones.
There you go. Right?
We named this while wearing a leather satchel across our chest.
There was a guy in front of me he was wielding a sword. He was doing all these crazy sword tricks. And then we just shot him. Do you remember that?
Not that we endorse gun violence at One Nation Under Whiskey. It was a different time
It was a
when
different time,
you shot him.
right?
It was a different time when you shot him.
We were raiding Lost Arks back in those days. So this Plus Garden Abbey is 16 years old, 13 years in bourbon, but the final 3 years, and this one's big to me, right? The final 3 years is in a refill sherry hogshead, and quite often you and I will target second fill or refill because you want that cask interaction, but especially when it comes to sherry and PX sherry in particular, a distillery that has a lighter spirit that sherry cask could overtake. And here it's adding on, it's layering, it's just building those flavors. And this distillery's naturally lighter yet peppery style of spirit still shines despite that, that sherry cask going on. So 60.9% alcohol and $170 on that one. So easily the most expensive in the range, but also one of the more impressive ones too. That one's been turning heads wherever I'm pouring it.
A good age to that as well.
All right, Jason, I made a suggestion before. You thought you knew which one it was. What's our funky monkey?
Naughty Thrusk.
Naughty Thrusk. Yep. So this one's a 13-year-old, and it was 8 years bourbon, 5 years in refill Jamaican rum.
It's so good for a Thrusk. It's so perfect. You think it's already a funky monkey? Watch this. Mm-hmm. I'm actually a little surprised when you led earlier with a favorite. I thought the Etruscan rum would be there as that kind of funky monkey favorite, showing people something really interesting and esoteric from that distillery.
It's definitely you know what? Ask me this question as the weather gets warmer, and I might say the Thrusk. Like right now, when I'm just freezing my what's off, balls, by the way. I want that heavier dram, that warming dram, but gets a little warmer. The Thrusk with that bright rum influence, I think really would tick the boxes for me.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. Really excited. All right. More details.
Details. Who's got the details? So we're looking at 59.5% alcohol. 140 bottles. And I think this one was our lowest outturn of all. I don't have the numbers in front of me of each one, but I think this one was only 169 bottles or something like that. Yeah. It went in from one barrel to the next. And, you quite often when you're finishing a whiskey, some of that liquid gets lost in the transference, and some of it just gets lost because that wood is re-soaking in the spirit, right? So you just lose a bit more. All right, the final one. And this one brings it all back, Jason, to our second release that we'd ever done. Back in 2013 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. It's a callback to that. This is a 12-year-old first fill bourbon cask from one of our absolute favorites, the Glenmurray Distillery.
Yeah. So many people asking, when's the next Glenmurray? When's the next Glenmurray? When's the next Glenmurray? So, here's a US retail Glenmurray. Just absolute opportunity for the distillery to shine. Still remains an absolute favorite of ours. Very special connections to the distillery. Mm-hmm. And as you're saying, way back in the day, second release was our first Glenmurray. Mm-hmm. And we've probably done 3, 4 along the way. And now here we are putting our first Glenmurray into US retail. Yeah. So sharing this love with distributors and retailers and people who like going down to their local liquor store and supporting Single Cask Nation.
Yeah. And their local liquor store as well. What I love about this one is, right, it just sings to the distillery character, right? That first fill bourbon cask brings out all of the fruit, gives it this buttery texture, right? Like when you think of, your favorite distillery, you have a very specific style from that distillery that you think it shows it in its best light. And a younger 12 to 15-year-old Glen Murray and First Fill bourbon, it's just, it's going to brighten your day. And that's what this is. It's liquid sunshine. So, you're looking at 59.7% alcohol, $135 on that one. So good strength, rich buttery texture, fruity presence. My line in here, just sort of my personal note that I then shared, and you can maybe find this on the interwebs, as I say, single cask from Glen Murray never disappoint. In selecting this cask, we wanted to highlight what we thought Glen Murray does best. Huge fruits, wonderful creamy quality. This is classic Glen Murray taken to 11.
That's it.
Right? That's it.
That's exactly the cask we selected. And that's exactly why we selected the cask that we selected.
For sure.
Absolutely cracking. Yeah, 8 winners there. Yeah, that's a lovely selection. Very pleased with that. Very proud of that. Appreciate the support of Impex, our importer, and our various distributors around the US. And, of course, those retailers who support Single Cask Nation, and the customers who, I was going to say, take Single Cask Nation off their shelves, but let's be honest, those customers who purchase Single Cask Nation and take it home and enjoy it.
Do not just
Don't just take it. No, you cannot quote this podcast.
Jason, I am desperate to be tasting some whiskeys. Can we, talk to people about our 3 bottlings that are coming to our website for March, but as we go through them, let's taste along the way.
Yeah. I've had this Tormore to lead the witness. Tormore in my glass. 3 single casks for online Single Cask Nation. What I love about this month's offering is that we don't have to tax ourselves on thinking about the pricing. Each of these bottles is $100. And we have a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 8-year-old, and 2 of them are peated. So I think for our first e-commerce release of 2025, I think we're coming out very strong and really showing the nation what we intend to put in front of them in 2025. You're talking about tasting, and we're just nosing here. We'll taste in just a second. I want to give our listeners the label note of this Tormore, because I think everything we say after this label note will be an echo of what we have going on this label.
All right.
So we have written a rich and unctuous Tormore with layer upon layer of dark fruit, dark chocolate, and dark molasses. Note the brightness delivered by ginger snaps and warm berry compote aromas and flavors. Peppery warmth, you and I, peppery warmth connects to the classic distillery style.
Man, I tell you, I'm just, as you were saying all that, I just had my eyes shut and I'm nosing this Tormore, and it's, as soon as you said dark chocolate, dark this, just all of the darkness, it's got that heaviness, but in the back, the pepper, the ginger in the background's lovely.
Yeah. And here you're dealing with first fill American oak hogshead finishing on this.
Yep.
Checks notes. 4 years, 4.5 years, that kind of ballpark for that level of finishing on this.
Okay. And the secondary cask again, what's the wood?
First fill American oak hogshead.
First fill American oak. Okay. Oh man.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right, where we're getting those dark qualities from this. And a lot of the casks we were sampling in 2024 in anticipation of 2025, we were finding American oak sherry was giving spirit a bit more room.
Yeah,
Spanish oak was kind of a heavier sherry influence. But then we start talking about the dark chocolate, the dark notes. The nose for me has a certain dankness to it as well, like a heavy dankness. But then that pepper that we talked about on the label note there coming in as a classic note from this distillery.
Yeah, the pepper really comes through on the palate on that first sip. And you take that second sip and then the flavors really start to build. The sherry starts to come through.
Mm.
Yeah. It's got this lovely texture. It's just like almost a waxiness just right down the center of your palate.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say to the listeners and for those in the nation in the US, all three of these casks that are $100 each, all three of them are bottled above 60% alcohol. And so really good, strong, heavy flavors. You know, these winter months, I'm sitting in my home right now. This is in my wife's office in the house, and I've got a window to my shoulder, and snow is falling while I am consuming this Tormore, and it could not be more perfect. So that Tormore is a mood, as the kids say.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing that I'll say about this, because I know we've got to move on to our other whiskeys.
Oh, gosh.
I really love what you said about Glenmurray and our connection to Glenmurray, our personal connection to the distillery.
I was just about to add this exact point. Yep.
Right. And, you know, for years we didn't have a connection to Tormore. We would, we would just bottle it if we found a good cask. But now our dear, dear friend, Ollie Chilton is the master blender. He lives right up by the distillery now. Our friends at Elixir Distillers are the owners of Tormore. And so to be able to bottle whiskey from their distillery and having that connection now too, like I'm excited to put this whiskey in front of Ollie and see what he has to say about it.
Well, and the part I was going to add, during our tastings, anytime a Tormore came up, we kept saying the same thing, which is, this has to be a Tormore that makes Ollie proud.
Yeah.
Like,
right. Yeah.
We said that in private conversation, and we firmly believe this is a Tormore that will make Ollie proud. And I'm going to use what we're now saying about Glenmurray connections and Tormore connections to connect into our Arran here, our Lochranza. You know, when we started bottling from this distillery, it was the Isle of Arran distillery. That's what we talked about. And Arran was in our first release, and Arran had specifically asked to be in our first release. And we had we continue to have a very special relationship there. In the time we've been bottling Arran, talking to people about the distillery, they've added a second distillery on the Isle of Arran. That is the Lag Distillery, Lagg. And so the original distillery is now called Lochranza, which is the little tiny village in which it is situated. So as you hear us talk more about Lochranza Distillery, we're talking about the old Isle of Arran distillery, and a place that has been near and dear to our hearts for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that their brand will remain Isle of Arran, but it's similar, right, to Knockdhu, who we mentioned earlier before. Knockdhu's own brand is Anach, is not the name of the distillery. So it's sort of a similar thing here in that the name of the distillery, in that there's a different name for the spirit than there is for the distillery.
Yeah, the thing I say to people is Isle of Arran Distillers owns the Lochranza Distillery and the Lag Distillery. And I think that's a pretty crystal clear way to think about it. I'll do what I did with the Tormore. I'll give you the label note, which I think really frames our experience of this cask. On the label, we've got smoky woodiness, intriguing minerality, bright and vegetal. Why are we thinking about mezcal right now? Keep sipping, though, and there are multi-layers with warm buttered scones and milk chocolate. Another banger from Arran, as in the Isle of Arran. So anytime you can use banger on a truncated
Right?
label note, you really have to do so.
Oh,
But
man.
you get that bright mezcal quality, that vegetal quality.
Without a doubt, right? And this is, the last Aaron that we did for retail was actually a cask that we bottled for two shops, Burlington Wine and Spirits in Massachusetts and Canterbury Liquors in Connecticut. And where that one was a big peaty fruit bomb, this one really highlights more that minerality that these notes speak to. And it's so bright, and I want to say brininess, but I don't want people to think of like an Isla brine where it's coastal and iodine-y. That's not it. Like, this distillery always has this natural salinity that comes through, and it really comes through for me in spades on the nose. I really like that.
I was just checking the dates on this. Distilled November of 2015, and then all 8 years in first fill bourbon barrel.
Mm-hmm.
That's clean, crisp, precise Aaron that you can set, or Lochranza that you can set your watch by.
The surprising thing to me on this, and this may be the last thing I say about this, other than I'm just thoroughly enjoying it. Like, this is phenomenal liquid. And this is, the note I'm about to mention is one that you often pick out, and you often pick it out in bourbon casks, and it's the milk chocolate. And I rarely get it until you mention it. And then when you mention it, I can't unget that note. I can't not see it. So what do you think is bringing forth that milk chocolatey kind of note coming through? Is that peat? Is it the malt? Is it the cask?
I guess it would be the malt, but I would think the malt is interacting with the oak in a certain way.
Yeah.
That is giving you that kind of butter meets cocoa that gives you milk chocolate. Yeah, love that one. The other thing I was just going to add here is you and I will have full tasting notes for these individual casks, just like we've always done. Those will be up on YouTube. This, for the SCN News episode of One Nation Under Whiskey, is more of a quick hop through the casks that will be coming to the website.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
So I've lifted the third here.
Oh boy, okay, I can't sit with that. All right.
No, but I've got the glass off to my side here on my windowsill.
Can I add this in? I mean, we're pouring the third, but the theme remains the same. Glen Murray, dear friends. Tormore, dear friends. Isle of Arran, dear friends. And here we are with our Ardnamurchan, our second one for the U.S., for dear friends at this distillery, and with their own independent bottling company, Adelphi, of course. And it's just so great to be bottling whiskey from a friend's distillery. And now we get to say that 4 different times throughout this, episode.
Well, may I read the truncated note for our 2015 Ardnamurchan?
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
Another hefty Highland whiskey from our friends on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula. The smoke is delicate, but accompanied by a coastal salinity. Dried fruits explode across the palate before the finish slowly dissipates, leaving a soft smoke on the tongue. Like, that's an Ardnamurchan that I want to be enjoying. And certainly our episode of One Nation Under Whiskey, where we spent time at the distillery, we did the recorded walkthrough.
Yeah.
We got to be there with Carl. We were obviously there with Jess. We met Ali along the way in front of one of the stills. That was a tremendous visit. So to have an Ardnamurchan coming out in March that lives up to the advanced Ardnamurchan billing, such a terrific spirit.
Yeah, and
we were celebrating 10 years with them when we were there late 2024.
There you go. And from a And the other thing about this cask, people might remember the 5-year-old and first fill sherry we did last year for 135. I mean, you nailed it out the gate here. All three of these whiskeys are $100 each. This is a 9-year-old. We really worked to sharpen our pencils on this. I think 135 for a 5-year-old is well worth it. I mean, there's a reason I think I went through 3 of those bottles, not just with myself, pouring it for friends. But my point is, we're always looking to sharpen our pencils when and wherever we can. And we were definitely able to pull some rabbits out of some hats and get this down to a price that I think this drinks beyond the price. That's how good it is. But
without doubt. Yeah, let me just quickly give the 3 here. We've got Tormore, 10-year-old, 63.2% alcohol, one of 171 bottles, and then that spent 4.5 years in first fill American oak hogshead. Mm-hmm. We've then got the Arran, the Lochranza, which is distilled in 2015, bottled as an 8-year-old, 61.8%, 214 bottles, all 8 years in first fill bourbon. And then we've got the Ardnamurchan, distilled in 2015, bottled as a 9-year-old, 64.9% ABV, one of 200 bottles, and all 9 years in first fill bourbon barrel. 3 absolute crackers to come out the gate with in 2025 and show the nation what they can expect from us as, I don't like to toot my own horn, but as the 2025 Icons of Whiskey Independent Bottler for America. So really proud of that. Really part and parcel of the support that we've always had from the nation. And we celebrate the nation with these 3 casks coming in March.
What I love is we could have had this same conversation last year, and you could have said, and I say this as 2024 winners of the Icons of Whiskey Independent Bottler of the Year. But now we get to say 2025 because, and I will toot the horn because it's the American in me, but I am so goddamn proud of the fact that we've done it 2 years in a row. Independent Bottler of the Year, Icons of Whiskey America. It really is special, and we're being recognized for something that we love to do. And we're bottling the whiskeys that we love to share with nation members and new people that we love to share with the nation and new people that we're bringing into the nation. So, cheers to you, Jason, for taking us through this tasting. And, for our listeners, if you want to reach out to us, info@singlecastnation.com. You can send us in any questions that you might have. If you have ideas for news stories that you want us to cover that are sort of outside of the scope of Single Cast Nation, as we mentioned in our season 9 primer episode, the one just before the one before this, if that makes sense, we mentioned, we're going to have interviews every other week. And then in those in-between weeks, there will be a Single Cast Nation news. And then after the interview, then there'll be an industry news. And we'll just keep on bouncing back and forth. So if you have any news items that you want us to cover, us to talk about, info@singlecastnation.com.
Cheers to that.
All right. Well, cheers, Jason. Lovely to be drinking a little whiskey with you.
Cheers to you. Cheers to the nation. Until the next episode.
Cheers.